Okay. Hi. So we're going to talk about butts. As the funny picture shows, sorry about your butt. The reason why I'm talking about butts is because we're going to be talking about ulcerative colitis, which many of you probably might not know what that is. A lot of people seem to be a little bit more familiar with Crohn's disease. Ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune disease. It's a IBD, irritable bowel disorder or disease. So I just thought I would give a little presentation about the disease and just a general information so people know more about it, because a lot of people, like I said, don't know about ulcerative colitis. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this. And here's my adorable dog. So first off, I'm going to tell you just a little. I'm going to hand him over to print. So ulcerative colitis is a chronic disease, which means that it's a lifelong disease. There's chronic and then there's acute. Acute can be something like, let's see here. Give me an example of an acute disease. Well, basically, acute is something that is healed within 6 months. So if the illness or pain is gone within 6 months, that's acute. A chronic disease is anything that lasts longer than 6 months. It's normally lifelong. And so, as I mentioned, it is a autoimmune disease. Well, it's commonly referred to as an autoimmune disease because your body does attack its own self and its own tissues. And then I did talk about Crohn's, the difference between Crohn's and colitis. So Crohn's affects the entire GI tract, which is your small intestine, your large intestine. It can even go into your mouth. You can have canker sores with Crohn's, whereas ulcerative colitis is just with the large intestine, which is also known as the colon. So within the colon, it's the innermost lining of the colon that is affected with ulcerative colitis. And so the main signs or symptoms with ulcerative colitis is inflammation and irritation of that lining of the colon. There's no physical symptoms on the outside of the body. You won't know that you have it besides, everything is internally. So I always refer to it as the invisible disease because a lot of people don't realize that you have it because there's no symptoms. You seem relatively healthy. I mean, some people might notice well, I'll talk about that, but there's some signs and symptoms which people might pick up on, but they typically won't think of colitis. So, but there's no physical symptoms of this disease, as in like outside physical. There's no sores. There's nothing that's going to show up. There's no rash. And then, so there's ulcers in the lining of the colon. So that's another thing that comes along with this disease, thus ulcerative colitis. And typically the disease begins gradually and then it worsens with time. And I actually have my own personal story about that. So I will talk about that after, though. I give you a little lowdown. And a lot of times diet and stress will initiate. So if you already have the disease, it was actually rumored years ago that your diet or stress could be an trigger for ulcerative colitis. But with more research, it seems like that is not the case. Typically diet and stress is just after you have ulcerative colitis, it's is he? Oh, he's laying down. Sorry. I was wondering where Brent went. So, it basically causes you to, if you're in remission, it could strike up a flare-up with your diet and stress. So the ultimate goal with ulcerative colitis is remission because, like I said, it's a chronic disease. So you want to just get into remission and watch your diet and watch your stress level, because those two things, along with other triggers, but those are the two main things, can definitely bring you out of remission and cause a flare-up. So some signs and symptoms of ulcerative colitis is you have loose, watery stools. your urgency will increase. Urgency typically is though when you're not in remission, you have a flare up. Otherwise, when you are in remission, urgency is not a problem. You're basically going to the bathroom as often as you would without the disease. And then blood in the stool and mucus in the stool is very common. Abdominal cramping is also a very big sign and symptom. Weight loss. Weight loss occurs because you are going to the bathroom more and because of the loose, watery stools. That causes you to not absorb the nutrients that you are eating. You're not absorbing as much, even though the main absorption does happen in the small intestine. The large intestine does absorb mainly fluids, so water, but it does absorb, I see what you're doing back there. It does absorb any nutrients that the small intestine does not, or that misses, the small intestine misses. So you can have weight loss due to that, due to frequent stool, bowel movements. And another one is loss of energy. So you're very fatigued. Dehydration, which goes along with the frequent bowel movements because they are loose and watery. So then you are losing a lot of fluid because the colon does. The colon's main job is to absorb the water and form the stools. So when that is not happening and you're losing more fluids due to the loose, watery stools, you become dehydrated. So, and then the second to last sign and symptom is anemia. And this is basically where your body doesn't have enough iron. So, and this kind of goes with the loss of energy. If you're anemic, you are very, very tired and you do not have energy, which I've also experienced due to the disease, but we'll talk about that, like I said, afterwards. So, and the last one is loss of appetite is the last signs and symptoms. And then the cause of ulcerative colitis, it's called idiopathic because that means it's unknown. But however, there are three main theories out there today that are beliefs to what causes ulcerative colitis. And these three main theories is your genetics, a malfunction of your immune system, and then environmental causes. So we'll start first with genetics. And so to begin with, people that have ulcerative colitis, typically you'll find, or 1/5 of the people that have ulcerative colitis will also have a family member with ulcerative colitis. So there is, even though that's not too high, there is a prevalence. There's a, what is the word I'm looking for? It's just, yeah, we do find that, or studies have found that there is there's a connection there. So, and then the next one is you have the highest ethnic group or culture, I should say, that is more prone to ulcerative colitis is Jewish descent. So this right there shows that there must be something with genetics, seeing as it stays with one culture. And then, so there was a study done, which I found pretty interesting. It was done in Boston with 474 adults. And they looked at 163 genes that are typically, they correlate with ulcerative colitis. And from these genes, they showed that people with ulcerative colitis had an altered gut bacteria. Our gut has a normal flora in it, and this is healthy, natural bacteria in the gut flora. So this bacteria is seen to be altered with people with ulcerative colitis. And then found in this altered flora is there's an increased opportunistic pathogens. So they believe that because of these genetic changes that alter our flora, our immune system is taking and viewing the bacteria in the natural flora of our gut, and they are attacking the bacteria because it is altered. So they're kind of still seeing it as like a bad guy when it's not. It's good. It's good bacteria that we need. And then the malfunction of the immune system. This kind of runs with genetics. There's a lot, you'll understand, but there's just a little similarities between like the triggers. So, but with this one, they believe that due to a virus or bacterial infection that you had in your gut, this kind of like acts as an on switch for the disease. So after even the bacterial infection or the viral infection is gone and healed, taken care of, the immune system at that point is out of whack. It's on overdrive, and it continues to attack bacteria and kill bacteria in your gut, even though the infection has already been taken care of. So that's one thing. Otherwise, they believe just because of the altered bacteria in the gut, like I already mentioned, this just kind of turns on the immune system. It puts it on overdrive and basically attacks your immune system, or not your immune system, sorry, your colon, when the bacteria is actually good. It's different, so the system is seeing it as bad when it's good. And then the last one is environmental. So the highest rates found for ulcerative colitis are in Western Europe and North America. So this is kind of showing that, like, what's different about our environment that's causing this. They actually looked at places such as like, Africa that maybe aren't as developed as North America and Western Europe. And as they become more developed, their rates of ulcerative colitis increases. So there must be something, maybe pollutants, that are causing our rates to increase. And then, so that actually is the second one, is air pollution. Cigarette smoking is also an environmental cause, or a theory to what causes ulcerative colitis. And then they also believe that, like, if you use a lot of NSAIDs and antibiotics, that can cause it can cause ulcerative colitis because, as I mentioned, your colon has a natural flora, and with antibiotics, it can alter your flora. It can kill the bacteria in your flora, which actually, if you take antibiotics for anything, an ear infection, which I'm guessing most of you guys have, if you've noticed, a lot of people, a sign and symptoms of antibiotics is diarrhea. So why that happens is because the antibiotics alter your gut flora, which thankfully after you finish your medication, the gut flora returns to normal, and that's why you don't have diarrhea anymore. So they believe that if you take antibiotics a lot, or NSAIDs, the continued alteration of your flora can cause ulcerative colitis. And then stress. That's another environmental factor. And stress, like I said, is a really big thing too with when you already have ulcerative colitis and bringing you out of remission and then causing a flare-up. So who is affected by UC? UC is also ulcerative colitis. I just like to cut it down because it is such a long word. So typically it's found with people 15 to 30, and then the rates do decrease after 30. So then after that, the increase is at the age of 60 and older. And then, as I already mentioned, it's found a lot in Jewish descent. And men and women are found to have equal opportunities for developing the disease. I don't know what that noise was, but so yeah, that's who ulcerative colitis affects. And so now getting into my own personal story, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in May of 2009. And I started medication right away. There's several medications. I started with Asacol, and that did not work for me. There was one point where I decided that I didn't want to be on Asacol anymore because these the side effects that can come along with the side effects that come with the medication are very negative. A lot of them have chances of causing lymphoma. They're just not, they're not good. And so the way that I viewed it is ulcerative colitis isn't going to kill me, but cancer could kill me, so why would I take medication that could ultimately have me end up with cancer that would take my life? So I actually stopped taking the medications, which caused me to go into a flare-up. Yeah, by the way, if you have ulcerative colitis, take your medication, okay? I know the signs or the symptoms and the outcomes. What?
Point your hand at the monitor and not the camera.
I want to point at the butt. There. Sorry about your butt. Okay. So, yeah, take your medication. And so after that, then I went into a flare-up. I went back on today's call. It did not work for me anymore. So they tried out new medications. Long story short, the medications did not work for me. They only maybe worked for a couple of months, and then...
Hey, wake up.
Why did that say that? Did anyone else hear that? Okay, it said, hey, wake up.
Oh, that's TeamSpeak.
Oh, that was cool. Okay, anywho, so, I was not expecting that. That threw me off. Okay, so the medications didn't work. And so then ultimately I went to the Mayo Clinic and I met with a gastroenterologist. And he basically told me that I was running out of options, and I tried most of the medications. At this point, I was on cyclosporin. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is, but it is basically the common use of this drug is for patients who just had a implant. So typically patients go onto this drug to help your body not reject the new implant. So it's not a common drug. It's a short-term drug. You cannot be on it long. It's has many side effects. Many side effects. So they basically told me I could get into a study with new medication that was coming out. At this point, though, I was too sick that I could not waste time on a study that I wasn't even guaranteed to actually get the medication, because they obviously need a group that would be getting, the fake medication to see if it actually works. So there was no guarantee that I was actually going to get the medication, thus, even knowing if it was going to work for me, since nothing worked for me up to this point. So actually, at this point, I basically had two options: have surgery, have your colon removed, or get into the study, which the doctor didn't even really recommend because I was so sick at this point. So then I ultimately chose surgery. So actually in December of 2009, so I didn't even have the disease for a whole year, I had a total colectomy, which involves removing your entire colon. I should state, ulcerative colitis does not affect your entire colon, or not in all patients. With me, it did. So there's several parts to the colon, and some patients that have ulcerative colitis might affect only part of the colon. So if you remove just that part, you'd be cured from the disease, but you'd only be missing part of your colon. Whereas my entire colon was affected by the disease, so I'd have the entire colon removed. And yeah, so I had my colon removed in December of 2009. I did have the external pouch. It's called an ileostomy. And I had that until March. And in March, then I had my takedown surgery, where they form a J pouch out of your small intestine. And so I had that connected in March. And so now I don't have my ileostomy. My system obviously runs different because I don't have a colon. So I do have to worry about dehydration because my body does not absorb the fluids, because that's the colon's job. And yeah, so I struggled with being anemic for a long time because I did lose blood due to the disease. So this caused me to be losing a lot of iron, and so I became anemic. And that is very tiring, as I mentioned as well. So basically, and this dark, horrifying story, it actually was very positive. For the longest time, I didn't know what I wanted to do for my life, for my career, and I learned from this situation, I guess, that I wanted to become a nurse. So I'm currently in the nursing program, and I hope to become an ostomy nurse one day. Ostomy nurses will help patients like myself who had the surgery, who had their colon removed, total colectomy, and then after they have their ileostomy. So I could teach patients how to put on a new ostomy pouch, and how to basically care for that until they have their takedown surgery. If they're going to have their takedown surgery, not every patient does. Some people just keep the ileostomy. So just know that, if you struggle with this disease, or if you know somebody that struggles with this disease, it's not the end of the world. I still, struggle with things that came along with it. You definitely know where every single bathroom is, and I still, anytime I go to a new area, I look to see where the bathroom is. I still do things that I did when I had the disease, but it's not the end of the world, and you can definitely live with it. And yeah, if you have any anxieties over it, get help. And like I said, make sure you take your medications. But that's just a little background. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something from it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Something that would be fun, if you watch this entire video, something that would be fun is maybe count how many times I said because I know I say it a lot. All right, I don't know how to stop this, so I'm going to turn to print now. Okay. All right, thanks guys so much. And like I said, if you want to know anything more or have any questions, feel free to comment below on this video, and I will I'll do a response video or whatever. So thanks for watching.